How lucky can one guy be?
It may have been 50 years, but the shock still hasn't worn off. Bill Carpentier didn't have a front row seat to history. He was a little closer than that. When the Apollo 11 astronauts returned to Earth, as a flight surgeon, Carpentier was in the chopper waiting for them. And he wasn't done. That's him in the orange flight suit. When Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins were locked up in quarantine, Carpentier was locked up with them.
You couldn't help but be aware that this is history in the making.
Carpentier grew up in Lake Cowichan, a small town on Vancouver Island. He studied medicine at UBC, but then moved to Ohio to focus on aviation and health. It was there that in 1965, he was recruited by NASA.
It never occurred to me that I could ever have this job. I wasn't a U.S. citizen.
Well, by 1969, Carpentier was basically the Earth's first line of defense, along with engineer John Hirosaki.
It's one small step for man.
Before Armstrong and Aldrin walked on the moon, everything NASA knew about the lunar surface was theory. Scientists thought it was improbable there were dangerous germs on the moon, but not impossible.
Everything that could be done should be done to protect the Earth.
Signing up for the job meant Carpentier agreed that if something terrible was discovered, he could be locked up forever. Or worse, they were given body bags in case they started dying. Fortunately, they weren't needed.
As it turned out, the moon was essentially a cinder.
Neil, Buzz, and Mike.
When President Nixon visited the astronauts, Carpentier was right behind them, and he was busy. In addition to caring for the astronauts as a medical doctor, he was also responsible for collecting the moon rocks and samples the men had brought back. Well, Carpentier says moon dust smells like wet ashes and gunpowder, and he knows because when he opened one of the astronauts' bags, the dust flew all over him.
And it got in my nose and my eyes, and it made my eyes water, it made my nose itch. You know, it was something in there.
So you're there trying to make sure that there's nothing coming back from the moon, and you're just full out inhaling some of the moon dust.
Yeah, I'm inhaling it, yes. But I said, you know, once you've smelled moon dust, you'll never forget it. It's got a distinct smell.
Now, Carpentier did break a rule at one point. During some downtime after dinner when everything was done, he pulled out something he'd smuggled into the quarantine, a bottle.
Unknown to anybody, I mixed martinis. And we toasted the flight. And that was the first time that I really thought, yes, they went to the moon and returned safely to Earth. To you guys.
Carpentier stayed at NASA for all of the Apollo missions. In fact, for his work on Apollo 13, he won a Presidential Medal of Freedom. It all left him with a unique way of looking at the moon. He says every time he looks up at it, he gets a little feeling of disbelief.
I know 12 guys that walked up there. Good God, how did it happen?
Mike Armstrong, Global News, Belton, Texas.